The planet Velir 9 was covered in soft gray fog that never lifted. Its sky always looked half asleep, heavy with clouds that glowed faintly from the light of a nearby blue star. The ground was rocky and cold, filled with ruins from a civilization that had died long before Sarath Vin was born. She was an alien archaeologist from the world of Kinara, known for her calm logic and endless curiosity. Most beings avoided the ruins, calling them cursed or haunted. But Sarath did not believe in curses. She believed in knowledge. For weeks, her small dig team had scanned the ruins, mapping tunnels and broken walls. They found ancient machines fused with stone, strange energy signatures, and signs of a massive explosion from centuries ago. Sarath worked quietly, her 4 delicate hands brushing dust away from carvings that glowed faintly under ultraviolet light. The carvings showed tall creatures with 2 arms and 2 legs, building great towers that touched the clouds. They looked nothing like the people of her world. On the 13th day, her scanner began to beep in a strange rhythm. She stopped working and checked the readings. Beneath her feet, deep underground, there was something sealed in a metal chamber, still active. Her heart raced as she called her assistant Tarl to help her dig. It took hours, but finally, they found a massive circular door buried in the ground. The material looked ancient yet untouched by time. When Sarath placed her hand on it, a light flickered under her palm as if the door was recognizing her touch. Tarl stepped back, his skin turning pale green with fear. "Sarath," he said nervously, "this energy signature is not Kinnaran, not Velian, not anything we've recorded. We should leave it for the Science Council." Sarath hesitated. Every instinct told her this was something extraordinary. "If we leave now, they'll take over the site," she said quietly. "We might never know what's inside." Tarl sighed, but he knew arguing was useless. Sarath was known for her courage or her stubbornness. Together, they activated the door's control panel. The old mechanisms groaned, releasing a hiss of ancient air. Slowly, the door slid open. Inside was a long chamber filled with blue mist and silent machines. At the center stood a transparent pod covered in frost. A single figure lay inside, a tall being, humanoid, with pale skin and short dark hair. Its chest rose and fell slowly as if asleep. Sarath's heart skipped a beat. She stepped closer, brushing frost from the glass. The being's features were peaceful, yet something about it radiated quiet strength. She scanned the pod and froze when the data appeared. "Impossible," she whispered. "This is a human." Tarl looked at her blankly. "A what?" "A myth," Sarath said, almost in awe. "A species said to have lived before the Great Expansion. They were said to be the first to explore the stars, long before any known empire. But they vanished." Tarl stared at the sleeping figure. "You mean those old stories the elders tell children? Humans were just legends, Sarath. They never existed." Sarath didn't answer. Her scanner confirmed the readings again and again. The DNA was unlike any known alien species, but matched perfectly with the mythical Terran genome. This was no legend. This was proof. The pod suddenly beeped. Lights flickered. The ancient systems began to power up on their own. Sarath stepped back as the glass opened with a soft hiss. Cold mist poured out. The man inside gasped, drawing his first breath in what might have been thousands of years. He coughed, shivering, and opened his eyes, clear gray, sharp and searching. For a moment he looked lost. Then his gaze met Sarath's and both froze. She trembled without meaning to. Never in her life had she seen eyes so alive. The man sat up slowly. His voice was hoarse but strong. "Where am I?" Sarath could hardly speak. "You're on Velir 9. Do you know who you are?" He frowned, looking around the room. His hand brushed over the symbols on his uniform. A faded blue suit marked with an insignia shaped like a circle with wings. "Captain Elias Wren," he said quietly. "Terran Expeditionary Fleet, Earth Command." Sarath's breath caught in her throat. She took a step back, her mind spinning. That name, Earth, was from the oldest myths. The planet of origin, the birthplace of all explorers. But it had been destroyed in the Great Collapse eons ago. No one had ever found it again. "Impossible," she whispered. "Earth is gone. Humans are extinct." Elias gave a weak smile. "That's what everyone says before they meet one." Tarl stumbled backward. "Sarath, this is wrong. He shouldn't exist. We need to leave this place before—" But Elias interrupted him. "Before what? The truth catches up?" His tone wasn't threatening. It was calm, almost sad. "How long has it been?" Sarath hesitated. "We don't measure time the same way you might have, but our historians believe your kind disappeared more than 10,000 galactic cycles ago. Elias went silent. He lowered his head, running a hand over his face. 10,000 cycles. He took a deep breath. Then it worked. The stasis vault survived. Sarath blinked. You mean you chose to sleep here? He nodded slowly. Our fleet was dying. We had no way home. The universe was tearing itself apart and humanity scattered. I was ordered to guard this vault until anyone found it. Sarath could hear the emotion in his voice. It wasn't pride or arrogance. It was loneliness. The weight of endless time pressed down on the room. Tarl quietly left to alert the ship above, but Sarath stayed. Something inside her refused to move. She watched Elias stand, weak but determined. His uniform was torn and covered in frost, yet he moved like someone trained for command. He looked around the chamber, noticing the alien symbols carved on the walls. You're not part of the Alliance, he said. Sarath shook her head. There is no alliance. The galaxy is divided into dozens of powers now. None of them remember you. Elias smiled faintly. Then maybe that's a good thing. My people weren't perfect. We built too much too fast. We believed nothing could stop us. Maybe the universe decided we needed to rest. Sarath studied him. But if you are truly human, then you're the last one. He looked up at her, his eyes steady. Maybe the last who remembers. But humans always leave something behind. A spark, a story, a myth. The word hung in the air like a promise. Outside, thunder rolled across the barren landscape. The ground trembled softly as if the planet itself recognized the awakening. Sarath felt something strange, an emotion she could not describe. Fear, yes, but also wonder. She had spent her life searching for lost truths, but she never expected the truth to look back at her. She finally asked, her voice barely above a whisper, Why is a myth standing before me? Elias looked at her kindly. Because myths, he said, are just truths that wait long enough to be forgotten. His words settled deep inside her heart. In that moment, Sarath knew her discovery would change everything. Not just for her world, but for the entire galaxy. The myths of humanity were not dead. They were sleeping. Elias looked toward the dark tunnel leading to the surface. I need to see the sky, he said softly. Sarath hesitated, then nodded. She helped him walk through the ruins, guiding him up the uneven stairs. When they reached the surface, the fog of Velir 9 parted for the first time in memory. The blue star shone faintly through the clouds, reflecting in Elias's eyes. He took a long, steady breath, and for the first time in 10,000 years, a human stood under alien skies again. Sarath watched him in silence. She knew that from this moment on, the universe would never be the same. The myth had awakened. The pale morning light spread slowly across the ruins of Velir 9. The air felt strange and alive, as if the planet itself was whispering about what had just happened. Elias Wren stood still for a long time, staring at the distant horizon where the fog touched the mountains. He had imagined this moment in countless dreams inside his frozen sleep, the first breath of open air after 1,000 centuries. But reality felt heavier, quieter. Sarath Vin stood a few steps behind him, her large dark eyes watching his every movement. She had spent her entire life studying what others called myths, and now one of those myths was standing only a few feet away from her. Her mind was racing with questions. Who had built this vault? Why had humanity vanished? And most of all, what would happen now that one had returned? Elias turned toward her slowly, his breath visible in the cold air. This planet, he said softly. It wasn't always like this, was it? No, Sarath replied. Our records say it once had oceans and forests. It became a frozen world after an energy war centuries ago. Most of it is lifeless now. He nodded, his eyes full of quiet sadness. So much time has passed, he murmured. We thought we could outlive the stars, but we could not even protect one world. Sarath could see how heavy those words were for him. She wanted to comfort him, but didn't know how. Her people were logical. Comfort wasn't something they offered easily. Still, she said, you were preserved for a reason, Elias. Maybe this discovery means something more. Elias smiled faintly. That's what we used to say on Earth. Everything happens for a reason, even the mistakes. They walked slowly toward Sarath's small research vessel that was waiting near the ruins. It wasn't large, but it was equipped with scanning equipment and a small living area. Her assistant, Tarl, was waiting near the entrance, still looking uneasy. He stared at Elias with wide eyes. as if afraid that the human might vanish or turn into something else at any second. "Did you report to the council?" Sarath asked. Tarl hesitated. "I sent a coded message. But I only said we found an unknown specimen in stasis. I didn't mention him." Sarath was relieved. "Good. We can't let them take control of this yet. Not until we understand what we've found." Elias raised an eyebrow. "Your council doesn't trust discoveries?" "They trust power," Tarl said quietly. "And you are something powerful. If they find out a human has survived, they'll want to use you." Elias chuckled softly. "Some things never change. Every species learns that lesson eventually." Inside the ship, Sarath showed Elias around. He studied everything with calm curiosity. The glowing control panels, the floating data screens, the sound of the soft engines humming beneath the floor. "You've come far," he said. "These systems look like the old Terran tech, but they've evolved beautifully." "Most of our technology came from ancient wrecks," Sarath explained. "No one ever knew who built them. We only adapted what we could understand." Elias gave her a thoughtful look. "Maybe my people left more behind than we realized." He touched one of the panels. For a moment, the ship's lights flickered as if reacting to him. Sarath frowned. "What did you do?" "Nothing," Elias said, confused. "It responded to my neural field. Terran tech used biosignatures, but I didn't expect yours to still recognize it." Sarath quickly ran a scan. The readings shocked her. The ship's systems had detected something deep inside Elias's neural pattern, a signal encoded in quantum pulses. It was faint, but it matched the unknown frequency that had been detected in several lost relics across the galaxy. "This signal," Sarath whispered, "I've seen it before in ancient archives. We thought it was random interference. You're carrying something inside your mind." Elias looked troubled. "I remember fragments of something. A project called the Arc Code. It was meant to preserve our history, our knowledge, our culture, everything that made humanity what it was. But it was hidden in pieces scattered across the stars. Maybe part of it was placed in me before I entered stasis." Sarath's heart began to race. "You mean the key to your civilization's return could be in your mind, or the key to its final end?" Elias replied quietly. "It depends on what we do with it." For several days, Sarath helped Elias recover. He learned quickly about the current galaxy, how new empires had risen and fallen, how the old races had disappeared. He listened carefully, rarely interrupting, but Sarath could see the pain in his eyes. Everything he had known was gone. Every friend, every city, every memory of home now belonged to history. Yet despite the sadness, there was a strange spark in him, something Sarath couldn't explain. When things went wrong, he laughed instead of panicking. When she grew tired, he kept working. Even when he was confused or overwhelmed, he never gave up. It was as if his very nature refused to surrender. One evening, as the ship drifted quietly above the ruins, Sarath found Elias staring at the stars through the viewing window. "Do you miss your world?" she asked gently. "Every second," he said without hesitation, "but missing it doesn't bring it back. Maybe that's the point, to build something new." Sarath folded her arms. "Your kind sounds strange. You lost everything, yet you still hope." He smiled. "Hope is what kept us human. It's what kept us alive when logic said we should have died." Those words stayed with her. She had always trusted science and reason, but Elias's presence made her question everything. There was something powerful in the way humans thought, not just intelligence but emotion, will, and belief. A sudden alarm broke their conversation. Tarl rushed into the room, his eyes wide. "Sarath, a signal from the Council's ships. They're entering orbit." Sarath's pulse quickened. "How did they find us?" Tarl shook his head. "I don't know. Maybe they tracked my earlier transmission." Elias straightened. "If they come here, they'll take the vault and everything in it." "They'll take you," Sarath corrected. He looked calm, though his eyes showed understanding. "Then we should leave." Sarath hesitated. "If we escape, they'll brand us as traitors." Elias gave a small grin. "In my time, we called that being explorers." They quickly powered up the engines. The ship lifted from the ruins, shaking dust and ice into the air. Moments later, bright lights appeared in the sky, council ships descending like silver arrows. Sarath's vessel darted toward the atmosphere, moving faster than any of her pilots had ever dared. Alarms flashed red, warning of heat and pressure. Elias grabbed the co-pilot seat, his hands moving over the unfamiliar controls. "Your systems are good," he said, "but they're designed for steady flight, not evasion." "Let me help. You don't even know this ship," Sarath protested. "Flying is flying," Elias said, smiling. With surprising skill, he guided the ship through the turbulence. The council ships tried to follow, but Elias pushed Sarath's craft to its limits, diving through the thick clouds and using the planet's magnetic storms to hide their trail. When they finally broke free into open space, the council's scanners lost them. Sarath stared at him in disbelief. "How did you do that?" He shrugged. "Instinct, I guess. Humans spent a long time learning how to survive things that should have killed them." Tarl collapsed into a chair, shaking his head. "I can't believe we just escaped the council." Elias leaned back, breathing deeply. "Now that we're safe, we need a destination." Sarath opened her map. "There's a neutral sector near the Edge Nebula. It's filled with ancient wrecks and hidden signals. If your ARC code exists, maybe we'll find traces of it there." Elias nodded slowly. "The Edge Nebula." He closed his eyes for a moment. "Yes, I remember that name. It was one of our last strongholds." Sarath entered the coordinates. The ship turned toward the distant glow of the nebula. As the stars stretched into lines, Elias gazed at the endless black beyond. "Every legend starts somewhere," he said softly. Sarath glanced at him, "And maybe this one is starting again." The ship vanished into hyperspace, leaving Velir 9 and its secrets behind. Far below, the old ruins glowed faintly, as if the planet was whispering farewell to the man who had once been only a story. The deep void of space surrounded the small ship as it traveled through the dark lanes of hyperspace. Streams of light streaked across the windows like silver rain. Inside, the hum of the engines was soft and steady, a rhythm that calmed the silence between the three travelers. Sarath sat at the navigation console, her long fingers moving lightly over the glowing controls, while Tarl handled communication scans. Elias sat near the viewport, quietly watching the stars. It had been several days since their escape from Velir 9. The Council's ships had searched, but Sarath's vessel was small and fast, able to slip between sensor grids unnoticed. Now they were heading toward the Edge Nebula, a place that existed at the farthest border of mapped space, where most travelers refused to go. Sarath looked up from her console. "We'll reach the nebula in 4 hours," she said. "After that, the sensors may not work properly. The energy storms there can interfere with every signal." Elias smiled faintly. "That sounds familiar. Humans loved places where no one else wanted to go." Tarl gave him a cautious look. "And that's why they vanished, maybe." Elias didn't reply. He didn't seem angry, only thoughtful. "Maybe," he said softly. "Or maybe we just went too far before we were ready." Sarath could sense the quiet sadness behind his calm voice. She had begun to notice that Elias spoke less about his past now. Sometimes, when he looked at the stars, there was a distant expression in his eyes, as if he was searching for faces that no longer existed. She wanted to ask more about Earth, about what life had been like before the Great Collapse, but she respected his silence. As they approached the nebula, the darkness outside began to shift. Clouds of violet and blue gas swirled ahead, glowing faintly like a sleeping giant. It was beautiful, but the beauty hid danger. Magnetic storms, unstable wormholes, and drifting debris made this region one of the most unpredictable in the galaxy. "The Edge Nebula," Sarath murmured. "I can't believe we're really here." Elias leaned forward. "This was one of our outer colonies," he said. "We called it Horizon Station. It was built for research, not war. If anything of the ARC code survived, it might be there." Sarath checked her maps. "There's no sign of any structure. Only empty coordinates." "That's because you're looking for something built on the surface," Elias replied. Horizon was hidden inside the nebula itself, between magnetic fields. "We designed it so only humans could find it." "How?" Tarl asked, skeptical. "Instinct," Elias said simply. "We didn't always rely on machines. We trusted our intuition too." They entered the glowing mist. The ship shuddered slightly as currents of charged energy brushed against its hull. Static electricity filled the cabin and the lights flickered for a moment. Sarath's hands moved quickly over the controls, stabilizing the ship. "Keep the sensors running," Elias said. "We're looking for faint pulse patterns, short rhythmic bursts. If the ARC code relay is still alive, it'll call to us." Hours passed as they searched. The nebula was silent except for the soft hum of energy waves. Sarath felt tired, her focus slipping, when suddenly a quiet beeping filled the cabin. "There," Tarl said, pointing to the scanner. A repeating signal, old but steady. Elias's expression changed immediately. That's it. That's the relay. He guided the ship toward the source of the signal. Through the thick clouds, a dark shape began to appear, a massive structure hidden within the glowing mist. It was old, covered in dust and ice, but still intact. Rows of metal towers rose like the bones of a sleeping giant. Sarath stared in awe. That's human architecture. It matches the design from your vault. Elias's voice was full of emotion. Home, he whispered. They slowly docked near a broken hangar bay. The ship's magnetic clamps locked onto the station's surface with a soft click. Sarath handed Elias a breathing mask, but he waved it away. If it's still running, the air will be breathable. After all this time? Tarl asked. Ilya smiled. We built things to last. The door opened with a hiss and a cloud of dust drifted inside. The corridor beyond was dark, but when Elias stepped forward, faint lights flickered to life along the walls, as if recognizing his presence. Sarath followed him cautiously, her heart beating fast. They walked through long hallways filled with broken consoles, flickering panels, and floating dust. Strange blue lights glowed in the distance. Every step echoed like a whisper from the past. This station was a hub of memory, Elias said quietly. We stored data here, the combined knowledge of our species. The ARC code wasn't just information, it was our soul. Sarath listened carefully, amazed by his words. You mean this place holds the story of your entire civilization? More than that, Elias replied. It holds our mistakes, our dreams, our essence. They reached a large chamber with a circular device in the center. It was huge, taller than any of them, surrounded by inactive terminals. Faint holographic text glowed across its surface, written in an old Terran language. Elias placed his hand on the panel. A soft blue light scanned his body, and then a voice spoke, calm, mechanical, and ancient. Identity confirmed. Captain Elias Wren, Terran Expeditionary Fleet, access level primary. The entire room came alive. Lights flickered. Machines hummed. A large hologram appeared in the air. A planet covered in green oceans and white clouds. Sarath gasped. Is that Earth? Elias's eyes softened. Yes, that's my home. The hologram shifted, showing cities, forests, and people walking through streets filled with light. The vision felt so alive that Sarath could almost feel the wind and hear the laughter. The voice continued. ARC code status. Fragmented. Core data modules missing. Memory integrity, 62%. What does that mean? Sarath asked. It means the archive survived, but not completely, Elias explained. Some pieces are still out there, scattered across the stars. The hologram changed again, showing lines of light stretching from the nebula to other regions of the galaxy. Those are the missing pieces, Elias said. If we can find them, we can restore the ARC code. Humanity's story can live again. Sarath's voice trembled slightly. If your story returns, it could change everything. Every race will want this knowledge, Elias nodded. Then we'll share it with all. Humanity made many mistakes by keeping power to itself. This time we do better. For a moment, silence filled the chamber. Then the hologram flickered. The light dimmed and strange symbols flashed rapidly across the air. Tarl looked worried. What's happening? The system is receiving an external signal, Elias said. Someone else just detected the relay. Sarath's eyes widened. The council must have traced us. Elias turned to her, his calmness returning. Then we finish what we came for before they arrive. He began transferring the surviving data from the relay to Sarath's ship. The process took time, and the chamber trembled slightly as power surged through the old circuits. While waiting, Sarath looked at Elias. His face was lit by the soft glow of the hologram, and for the first time, she saw not just a man out of time, but a symbol, a living link to a species that had once believed the stars were theirs to explore. You know, she said softly, your people may have disappeared, but maybe they never really died. Maybe they live in those who still dream like you. Elias looked at her with a gentle smile. Dreams are contagious, he said. Sometimes that's all we need to survive. The system beeped, signaling the data transfer was complete. Elias downloaded the remaining memory into a small glowing cube, the ARC fragment. He held it carefully, almost reverently. This is part of our heart, he said quietly. Now it belongs to the galaxy again. As they turned to leave, Sarath felt the ground vibrate beneath her feet. Outside the station, bright lights appeared through the nebula, ships closing in fast. They're here, Tarl said. Elias looked toward the distant glow. Then it's time to show them that myths don't hide. They rise. The three of them hurried back to the ship, carrying the last memory of Earth and a spark that would soon set the galaxy alight with wonder. The nebula glowed in chaotic streaks of violet and blue as the Council's ships moved closer. Sarath's vessel was small but fast, darting between clouds of charged gas like a fish weaving through turbulent waters. Elias Wren stood at the control panel, his hands steady, his gray eyes focused on the readings. Sarath sat beside him, scanning for any anomalies while Tarl monitored the incoming ships. They're faster than we thought, Tarl said, his voice tight with worry. They'll catch us if we stay on this course. Elias shook his head calmly. Let them try. They've never faced the Edge Nebula's currents. The storms here aren't natural. They were engineered, not to kill but to protect. Sarath blinked. Engineered? By humans? Elias smiled faintly. Yes, long ago we learned that survival meant leaving paths no one else could follow. The nebula has always been our secret. Only someone who understands it can move safely. The Council ships fired warning pulses, but they dispersed harmlessly in the charged clouds. Sarath could see the frustration building in the displays. The pursuing vessels were powerful, but the nebula favored those who knew it. Elias guided the ship through twisting channels of energy, dodging debris and glowing currents. Hold on, he said calmly. The real test is ahead. They reached the heart of the nebula, a vast area where swirling clouds opened into a calm, glittering expanse of stars reflected through violet gas. In the center floated a massive structure, the remnants of a Terran fleet long thought lost. Ships of all sizes frozen in orbit, their hulls intact, silently waiting. Some had minor damage. Others were completely preserved. Sarath gasped. Your fleet, it's still here? Yes, Elias said quietly. We left them in orbit, powered down, waiting for someone who remembered how to awaken them. Tarl stared in disbelief. How did you know? Elias's eyes softened. We always believed that someone would come, that the spark of humanity could not be erased. And here I am. Sarath watched as Elias moved toward the command pod at the center of the fleet. He placed his hand on a panel, and the ship's lights flickered to life. Slowly at first, then brighter, stronger. Energy flowed along circuits that had been dormant for millennia. Engines hummed softly. Shields stabilized. This is incredible, Sarath whispered. You're waking them. All of them, Elias nodded. We were explorers, not conquerors. The fleet was meant to protect, to guide, to share knowledge. Humanity was never about domination. It was about discovery. As the ships powered up, a soft signal pulsed through the nebula. Small vessels moved, forming patterns waiting for instruction. Elias turned to Sarath. The ARC code is now connected to the fleet. Every ship will carry a fragment of knowledge. Together we can restore the story of humanity, not as rulers but as teachers and explorers. Sarath's chest swelled with awe. She had spent years studying myths and legends, but seeing them come alive was beyond anything she had imagined. And the Council? She asked. They'll see what humans were, Elias said. And maybe, just maybe, they'll understand that knowledge belongs to all, not just those who seek power. Suddenly, the Council's ships fired energy pulses toward the fleet. Elias's ships moved in formation, creating shields that dispersed the attacks harmlessly into the nebula's energy clouds. Each pulse revealed the strength of the human fleet, advanced yet precise, powerful yet careful. Sarath watched, amazed. Your people. They were more than explorers, they were artists of survival, Elias smiled faintly. We tried. Mistakes were made. But we also learned that every failure can teach something. The fleet began to move as one, forming a graceful pattern that spread across the nebula. Light from their engines reflected off the clouds, creating streaks of gold and blue. Sarath felt a sense of peace and excitement she had never known. This wasn't war. This was revival. This was a species reminding the galaxy of its existence. Elias turned to her. Sarath, will you help us? She nodded, her heart racing. Of course. I want to learn. I want to help tell your story. Together, they transmitted the ARC code fragments to nearby stations and colonies, carefully ensuring the knowledge was shared equally. Medicine, agriculture, engineering, and art. All the best of humanity was now available to every civilization willing to use it wisely. Outside, the nebula shimmered with energy. Strange storms reacted to the new signals, stabilizing as if recognizing that balance was returning. Sarath realized that the myths she had studied were not just stories. They were lessons, waiting for the right moment to be remembered. Elias walked to the viewport and watched the fleet move gracefully through the nebula. "We didn't survive to return as conquerors," he said softly. "We survived to remind the galaxy what it means to explore with hope and courage." Sarath looked at him. "And what about you?" "I'm not a god," he said, turning to her with a gentle smile. "I'm just a man who remembered what it means to be human." "That's enough," Tarl, still in awe, whispered. This will change everything. Every world, every mind, every future." Elias nodded. "Yes. And it will be better because we remember what it means to live, not just exist." As the fleet activated fully, Elias released a final transmission, a message broadcast across the galaxy. It was simple, clear, and full of hope. "We are humanity. We are explorers, thinkers, creators. We have returned not to rule but to share. Remember us and remember what it means to dream." The transmission rippled through space, reaching distant worlds. On every planet, beings paused, some in disbelief, others with tears in their eyes. The myths of humanity were no longer myths. They were real, alive, and reminding the galaxy of the strength of courage, hope, and curiosity. Sarath watched as Elias's ships moved toward the stars, carrying knowledge and life. She felt a warmth in her chest, a mix of pride, awe, and something she could not describe. For the first time, she understood what it truly meant to witness history. "Will you stay?" she asked quietly. Elias looked at her. "I have no home left, not in the old sense. But I have a purpose, and purpose is enough." He stepped back into the command pod, guiding the fleet to follow paths marked by humanity's old maps. Sarath realized that though Elias had been a myth, he was also a teacher, a guide, and a spark of hope for all the universe. Hours later, when the fleet had disappeared into the nebula and beyond, Sarath stood alone with Tarl. The station hummed quietly, the glow of the nebula surrounding them like a protective shield. "Do you think they'll return?" Tarl asked softly. Sarath smiled faintly. "They already have in more ways than we understand. A myth can be stronger than any empire. It can survive time, space, and doubt. And when it wakes, it reminds everyone what is possible." For a long moment, the nebula was silent, holding the echoes of a species that refused to be forgotten. Then a gentle pulse of light spread across the station, as if the universe itself acknowledged that something extraordinary had returned. Elias's voice came through the comm system one last time, faint but steady. "Remember, Sarath, myths are not just stories. They are truths waiting for someone brave enough to believe them. Teach that and you'll never be powerless." Sarath nodded, feeling the weight and the wonder of those words. Humanity's story had returned, not with weapons or conquest, but with courage, hope, and knowledge. It was a reminder that even after the longest silence, a spark could awaken the stars. The Edge Nebula glimmered like a living jewel as the fleet disappeared beyond the horizon, leaving behind a promise that humanity's dreams, once thought lost, were now a light for all civilizations to follow. And Sarath, the alien woman who had once trembled in fear, now stood tall, knowing she had witnessed the rebirth of a myth, a truth that would shine across the galaxy for generations to come. The myth had awakened, and this time the galaxy would remember.